Welcome. Welcome.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
good. How are you?
I am also pretty good. I think there were two people waiting. This is true. All right. But I think we're also going to be a small group. So since you're here and since you're talking anyway, where are you at with this whole GMAT thing? Is there anything that would be particularly useful to you if we looked at it?
Okay, so I've been prepping for a few weeks now.
Yeah.
I've been doing okay, so on my first I did a practice test and I
Hmm.
got like 500
Okay. Not
and
bad.
I did good on verbal, not so good on quant, which is weird because I think my math skills are actually pretty strong.
Yep.
Um, so I've been practicing doing quant easy questions,
Hmm.
and trying to get like 90 on those. So that's what I've been doing these past couple weeks, and also trying to do some data insight. I
Yep.
find data sufficiency really hard. So that's like the question type I've been trying to tackle for DI.
Data
Um,
sufficiency is really hard.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, are you finding, I would assume you're having more trouble with the like math-based data sufficiency ones than the,
I haven't.
or
Okay, so like I think all of them were just really confusing. Like I think I did all the easy questions in the official guide, but I still wasn't scoring that well. So I'm like, I kind of want to try to nail the easy level uh data sufficiency questions first before I move on to something else, I guess.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know if that's a good approach or just like trying everything.
No, I think it is like, look, it is a good approach. It sounds like
Okay.
one, you are trying a little bit of everything because you, after all, took a practice test and stuff like that, right? But then
Yeah.
two, doing like focusing on some stuff while you practice a bit of everything is absolutely the right call, especially when you're fairly early in your studying. Now, I don't know, what is your
Yeah.
timeline for this thing?
I don't really have a timeline because the thing
Right?
is like I'm yeah, so I have to have an application in next year. Like I'm planning on applying next year. So I have
Got
like
it.
a year really. But I
You've got
wanted to
endless
try
time, but
to yeah, just because I decided to do my MBA just like last month.
got it.
Um yeah, so with the timing, but I wasn't really sure when I could take the test. Like I've been trying to do like 10 hours of study a week and I was like maybe I could do it at the end of the summer, but I
Mhm.
haven't registered for a date yet or
Okay.
anything for a class
Yeah,
for a yeah.
but that's not an unreasonable timeline at all, especially if you're getting through
Okay.
10 hours a week. That's a
Yeah.
really reasonable timeline as far as it goes.
Okay.
You can, I mean, look, there's definitely not a huge reason to schedule it right now anyway, unless
Right.
having the date would be more study motivation, but it sounds like you're studying already. You're not having trouble, it sounds like, finding motivation. So, um,
Yeah. I
do
didn't
you
want to
think
commit to a date until I did maybe a few more practice
that's
tests.
exactly what I was gonna
Yeah,
say?
did a few more mocks.
Yep.
Because I've only done one so far, which was like that first one.
Yeah,
So
no, that's exactly what I was gonna say. That like
yeah.
you'll be able to schedule it with. I mean, look, that starts to get toward the busy season, end of summer, beginning of fall. A lot of people are taking it, but even then, you'll
Okay.
be able to like. If you're taking it online, you'll be able to schedule it easily. If you're taking it in
Yeah.
person, you'll probably need like, depending on how particular you are about the day on which you take it or the time of day
Right.
that you take it out, you might need like a week or two of lead time, but not anything
Yeah.
huge. So yeah, you don't need to schedule it anytime soon. I totally agree that you should wait until you've taken a couple of other practice tests.
Okay. How many mocks would you suggest someone does before they get like I don't know, online it just seems so random. Like some people are like, oh, I've done six. I was like, I don't have the patience for six. I was thinking like four, but I don't know.
Look, that
Yeah.
honestly, I would say at least four.
At least four. Okay.
Yeah, I think four can be the sweet spot for a lot of people. There
Yeah.
are six, and so some people are like, they take it as a challenge. They're like, I gotta get through all six, or else I'm not fully prepared, or something like that.
Yeah.
That's not totally the case, like at all.
Right.
And especially if you find them that tedious, then it's definitely not the case. You don't have to really prioritize mocks. You
Yeah.
may find so really what's gonna the way it goes usually, and I'm not saying it'll go this way for you because you're studying in an interesting way in which you're focusing on easier problems first, and I think that's really smart. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but
Okay.
the way it often goes for people is they take their first mock, they get whatever score, they take their second mock, and their score is either the same or it goes down, and
Right.
then they take the third mock, and it usually bounces back at least somewhat, and it's on the fourth mock that you see maybe some gains finally after all that work because of how
Yeah.
the test is. And how the
Okay.
test is also, by the way, the reason why, even though you feel like you're actually good at math, you're still struggling on quant. It's how the test is set up.
Yeah.
It's not like, you like very likely are very good at math, and you can be good at math and still struggle a bit with the test. Still, the scoring of the quant section in particular is
Yeah.
pretty punishing.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
like
you
you
can't miss
miss
any, right?
even
Yeah.
kinda like you miss a couple of
Yeah.
questions and it can like decimate your score, it seems.
Yeah.
And you certainly like look, one thing I should say, just because you're kind of new to this, in case you haven't heard it, never leave a section unfinished. Like no matter what, if you've
Right.
got 10
Yeah.
seconds left, make sure you answer out. Okay, good, good, good.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that's so many points. But yeah, in quant, it seems like wherever you miss a question, it takes, a couple or a few or several points off your score, at least for the
Yeah.
first couple. And it is pretty rough scoring. That's not totally true. The way it really works is that like the harder the question you get wrong, the less it hurts your score. The easier the question you get wrong, the more it hurts your score. And that's why you'll see some variation.
Right.
You could like get the same number of questions wrong, but see a different score because of that
Okay.
phenomenon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Because of the dynamic nature of it, right? Or
yeah, yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
exactly that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's such a good thing that you're focusing on easy questions now. I will say, like, by the time you're ready for the test, you want to be basically 100 on the easy questions. And not
Yeah.
only that, you want to be fast on the easy questions. And I say that because since you're
Yeah.
looking at the easier questions now, now's the time to be thinking about it. I mean, look, you're new
Right.
to it, and so it's like it's good if you can get them right at all. But the eventual goal with the easy questions is they need to be your like 1 minute questions.
Yeah, that's the thing I was trying to do was like
Yeah, good.
just trying to do them and then be able like okay, so I ran through all the easy questions already in the like the official guide. So I'm doing them
Hmm.
all again because there's only
Hmm.
so many. So I just
Yep,
reset them and I'm trying to do them all
it's
again.
true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's like 100. So I do them in like groups of like 20 or 25 and then
Hmm.
see what I get and then try not to miss any. So actually in the second round I found them easier. It's like doing them the second time. So it's getting better. So yeah.
Good, good. Look,
Yeah.
that's really good. And I assume it
But
wasn't because you just like memorized them all, right? Like
no,
you were
no,
just
yeah.
kind
It
of
was just
able
like
to like go to the right thing. Yeah.
yeah, doing the setup. I think just recognizing how to
Hmm.
like set up certain problems. And I think like yeah, I did the free trial class and then the
Yeah.
instructor said we should like try to like the test will be a mix of if we can do like a mix of hard and medium
Hmm.
questions. So yeah, that's why I'm trying to get my time good on the easy and then move on to like
Yep.
medium.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then on medium, your goal will be to be pretty like 90 is what you want to
Yeah.
aim for on medium for
Okay.
accuracy. Time wise, you can definitely like ideally you'd be between 1 and 2 minutes because the hard questions are going to definitely take you longer than that. And
Take up
again,
more. Yeah.
yeah, and you can get them wrong. Like remember, the hard questions are the ones you want to get wrong if you're going to get any wrong because they hurt you the
Right.
least. But
Yeah.
still, just that like balancing act of time and accuracy is a really tough one as you get to the harder and harder
I think
questions.
it's like, yeah, it's the time that kills me. I think I just have to
Yep.
keep doing them because, yeah, like I can get it right, but it will take me like 5 minutes. Like, yeah, so it's the time.
Are you keeping track
Yeah.
of like your errors or your takeaways really from the problems? Like,
Yeah,
I
because
yeah.
it shows like it shows me I can review all the questions I've done
Mm-hmm.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what I look at. Like I look at those. But I also kind of okay, I also maybe my timing isn't accurate because I don't pause it like I because the timer keeps going online
Yeah.
and I'm looking at the answer. So maybe I'm actually taking less time than I think I'm taking because I'm looking at
Because
the answer.
you're doing
Yeah,
like a set of questions, but it's showing you the answer after each
right
question,
away. Yeah.
essentially. Oh,
Yeah. So when I'm correct, I move on, and then when I should change that. So I guess I look at it after and not during.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what I was gonna say. Turn off that like
Yeah.
review answer button, and it'll be a much. It's like one, it's the way you want to practice anyway, because it's more test like. Two, obviously, it's going to give you a
Right.
more accurate read on time too, right?
On
So
time. Yeah.
generally, if you're doing random practice, you want it to be timed practice, and
Right.
random for topic, not necessarily for like difficulty or whatever. But yeah, random for
Yeah.
topic, which is how you're doing it. You also, though, need to complement that with targeted practice. So, you said you're doing data sufficiency now and doing kind of a deep dive on that, which is perfect. But
Yeah.
in quant as well, like targeted practice can mean focusing on certain topics, right? Like data sufficiency
Yeah.
questions in certain topics, problem solving quant questions in certain topics and stuff like that.
I think there was like yeah, I was like in quant. I can't remember which ones. I think like the sequencing ones I
Hmm.
have was the only one I really had like trouble with from like like setting it up point
Yep.
like yeah other all the other types of questions I think like I also just took a math course like last year so
Oh,
that's why
nice.
that was kind of fresh in my head
Yeah, yeah,
so like yeah
no doubt. Okay, good, good, good. That's
So
gonna. So like, so the test is basically like you got the technical side, right, where you have to like relearn all the math or whatever, which I would think the
yeah,
course last year really helped with. And then you've got the like once you clear that hurdle, you've got the problem solving side, the like how do I set up something for this totally new problem I've never seen before side of it, right? And
yeah,
as you're encountering, that's the real difficulty of the test. And as questions get harder, that's definitely the aspect that gets harder with those questions, right? And so
yeah,
and so all of this is to say, like, practice problems are good. You need to definitely do random problems, but you do want to do some like targeted, topic-based practice too, especially when you see an issue. So sequences, for instance,
yeah,
you get got on sequences, not sure how to set up those problems. Now, one thing you do is like you go and read up from something on how sequence problems should be set up, or watch YouTube videos or something like that. Like I don't know
yeah.
how you're getting your instruction, but get
Uh,
some instruction on it.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, I have like the Manhattan Prep book, so I was looking
Okay,
at
nice,
that.
nice. So the
Yeah,
chapters from there. Okay,
yeah.
good. And by the way, we can look at sequence questions today as well.
Okay.
So,
I think I
because
want like yeah, I think I want to focus on data insights because
okay,
that's the ones those are the questions I've been avoiding. Like
yep.
quant, I feel like I can get better at it just from
hmm
practice. But I think data
Um,
insights is like,
and
yeah.
specifically data sufficiency, right?
Yeah,
Or
I would
okay,
say
yeah,
the data sufficiency and I'm just kind of looking. And like the two-part ones
yep.
too.
All right.
Where you
Um,
have like the yeah, that one also. I'm not that great at it. So
Yep,
yeah.
yep, yep. Okay, good. I've got two parts like lined up as part of the presentation anyway, so we'll be able to go
Okay.
straight to that, and we'll do
Yeah.
some data sufficiency. I think that is 100% stuff worth doing. What was I gonna? Oh, right. Have you been using GMAT Club at all?
No, I haven't really. I've just been using, yeah, like the is GMAT Club like the forum? Is that
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
yeah.
that's exactly what it is. But it has like on the forums, it has just a bunch of problems, basically, right? Tons of
Oh,
problems.
okay.
So like all the official guide problems are in there, and all the Manhattan Prep problems, and all the problems written by all the other major companies and stuff like that.
Right.
And even as like a free user of it, you can search or you can like filter by difficulty level and
Okay.
by topic if you want to in quant or by like type in data insights or whatever it may be and then just be able to practice a bunch of questions of that topic of that type
Is it
whatever.
worth doing? Okay, so here's the other thing. Is
Um,
it worth doing questions that are not from the official guide? Because you're not using because the official like they're the ones administering the GMAT, right? So like
okay,
other
in
companies,
truth
yeah.
In truth, other companies do a good job with quant questions, with data sufficiency
Oh, okay.
questions, and with like quantitative themed questions. So, like quant two-part questions or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody does a pretty good job with that. It's the verbal stuff that you really
That
want
needs
official stuff for, and
okay.
verbal adjacent data insights, I would say as well, because they use their language in a very particular way,
Right.
and other companies, we try to approximate it, but nobody's perfect at
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I'd say that like
Okay, good to know.
everybody's good at imitating quant. And so, yeah, GMAT Club is
Okay.
particularly useful for quant. I think with a paid subscription there, you can also just search by source, and all the official guides since forever are on there as sources. And so, if you wanted to do that, that would be like a
Yeah.
cheap-ish way to get it. But like, even as just a free user, it's a really useful resource for quant and data insights, which is what you
Is
need
it
anyway.
worth looking at old because like didn't the GMAT focus just like that's a new thing, right?
Yep.
So have the
Um,
quant like questions changed in the GMAT like from the older version? Like are they still
No, there's been this tendency over the last like 10 years, I would say, on the GMAT in general to get to like more abstract quant questions, more like set theory stuff and a lot of exponent stuff and maybe combinatorics. That's been happening in the test and seems to just be continuing with
oh okay.
the focus edition. What really like the question, even the official guide itself, if you look at like 2022, the last
Right.
or 23, the last non GMAT focused official guide
Yeah.
to the first GMAT Focus official guide, basically like I want to say 70-80% of the questions are just carried straight over. Like
Oh, okay.
they're not even really trying. The biggest things were like sentence correction got eliminated, so an older official
Yeah.
guide sentence corrections there, and you ignore it. Um,
Yeah.
IR, integrated reasoning, which used to be part of the
Right.
test for about 12 years, got upgraded to data insights. But
Oh, okay.
other than that, the biggest change is you've got more like logic focused questions now, and only the newer official guides will have that. So what I'd say is like aside from sentence correction and geometry, all the stuff in the older official guides is still valid for the test,
Oh, okay.
but the stuff in the older official guides isn't quite all the stuff that'll be on the test now because a lot of the more like logic focused types are going to be a bit missing. That's the way I
Yeah.
think about it. But yeah, it's
Okay.
still like it's all very very like good valid practice for sure.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Oh.
good. Like, yeah, that's a good thing to know if I run out of questions.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mentioned it simply
yeah.
because you're on your second run through the easy official
But
guide
that's only because
questions.
I haven't moved on to like, yeah, the medium questions yet. But
No, no, no.
um
I know. You got like official guide question. It was more like if you know, on the second round, you're like, okay, I'm still not at 90, but now I know these questions because I've seen them twice. Then
yeah,
going
yeah,
to like GMAT Club and saying, okay, I want to just filter for these like two or three easiest
yeah,
levels and get questions like that can be a useful thing, just as a backup plan more than anything.
yeah,
But yeah, you're right. Like the official guide's still the best place to start, and it is like it's canon, so you can't go wrong really. It's just there's sometimes not enough. That's all.
yeah.
That's all. But cross that bridge when you come to it. You're fine. All good. All right. Let's do a little bit of two-part stuff and data sufficiency stuff as
Yeah.
mentioned. Um and you said it was kind of any part of any kind of two-part question that was getting
Yeah,
you
any
or
kind of two-part. I haven't gone too deep into it yet.
yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Let's look then. We'll look at a couple of the harder types and maybe leave the verbal one off.
Okay.
Because so okay, the way data insights goes, about half to two-thirds of it'll be math related questions, and then about one-third to one half of it'll be more verbal or logic related questions. Not that
Sorry, wait, you said one third will be
so
uh
basically half to two-thirds will be math related, and
math
the
related. Okay.
rest will be more verbal or logic related. And to some
Okay.
degree, logic's everywhere,
Right.
but that's about the way it goes. Two-part questions tend to show up about four times on any given data insight section. Um, and so of those, it's usually half and half. It's two of them are quantitative, and then the other two are more verbal, logic, that sort of thing. All right.
Okay.
And so we'll look at a more quantitative one. We'll look at a more kind of logic focused one, and then we'll switch over to some data sufficiency. All right, here goes. Now, and Priyanka, I see you there too. If you put anything into Q&A that you want to make sure we cover, I'll be sure to do that. But two parts were part of the plan anyway. So here we go. Now, Ashley, kind of up to you. Do you want a minute to like look at this, try it on your own before we discuss it, or shall I lead the way? It's up to you.
Maybe, yeah, I would like to try it, I think.
All right, perfect, perfect. I'm gonna hang back then for like a couple minutes, and then
Yeah.
we'll see where we're at.
And this is a hard question, you're saying?
Yeah, it's a pretty hard question, I would
Okay.
say. And yeah, yeah, it's a pretty hard question. Also, Priyanka registered, and we'll make sure we do some sequence.
Okay, I think I have an answer, but I don't think it's right.
That is the best kind. Tell me about it.
What do I have?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tell me what you got first.
Okay.
And
No,
then,
I don't know. I don't know. This is a hard one. Yeah. Um. So the total first shift balls I had is three, maybe.
okay.
That
All
doesn't make
right.
any sense now. The total balls for both shifts, my number is not right. Um. It could be. I think total for both shifts could be. It could be 24
Okay. All
D,
right. All
and
right.
total for first shift could be six. That's what I guess. I'm guessing, but I don't know.
All right. All right. Total for first shift could be 6. And then 24. Oops. Got it the wrong way.
Sorry, 24.
6. And
Yes,
then 24. Boom.
and 24.
All right. All right. Out of curiosity, what tack did you take on this one? Were you like using variables? Did you make up numbers?
I did ratios.
Ratios. Nice.
Yeah. So I did a ratio of like using that. So it's every day second shift workers make 4 to 3 as many light bulbs as each shift worker.
Yeah.
And then based on that, I kind of was thinking like, okay, so if they make and then my math, I was like, okay, maybe if they make 12, uh, does that mean there's like three or something? And then but then there's only 1/3 of the shift workers as there are. Uh, yeah, I think I got lost here because I was thinking like
Okay.
second shift workers is only 1/3.
Yep.
Uh,
All
so
right. All right.
yeah, but I don't
Got
know.
it. Okay. So you got all fractions up here, which generally means you
Right.
can make up numbers, use ratios, exactly
Yeah,
that sort of thing, right? First shift workers is 2/3 the number of second shift workers. So if we're looking at first shift and second shift and number of
yeah,
workers, we're looking at like 2 to 3, essentially, right?
right.
More workers on the second shift for sure. Every day, each second shift worker makes 4/3 as many light bulbs as each first shift worker. So light bulbs would be now 3 to 4, right? Second shift workers are still working harder, no doubt about it. Of course they are. Of course they are. But yeah, notice they moved it around. They changed the order on that thing. Now,
Yeah, that's the wording. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It's that way. And fraction and percent problems in particular, they're gonna do junk like this like every
Okay.
time, basically. They love to change the order. They like to just subvert your expectations in some way. Because they're good people and that's how they roll. Um, all right. Now, usually when you make up numbers to solve a problem, you want to read those numbers into the problem. And it's a little hard to do here because of the ratio nature of the problem. But essentially, what we've just said is each second shift worker makes 4 light bulbs, and each first shift worker makes 3 light bulbs, right?
Right.
So indeed, we have to get our total number of light bulbs, multiply, right? We got 2 workers, each makes 3. We're looking at 6. And on the second shift, we got 3 workers, each one makes 4. We're looking at 12.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So far, so good. But then what you'd really want is if the first shift bulbs were going to be 6, then the total bulbs for both shifts would be 18, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so total is the part that's kind of missing from here, but yeah, you'd get it by adding up the two parts. And this is where this thing gets fun. Because you're right, you did a ratio. You got a ratio. The ratio of light bulbs made by the first shift to light bulbs made by the second shift is 6 to 12. The ratio of light bulbs made by the first shift to total light bulbs made by both shifts is 6 to 18, right? And if you reduce it, that's a 1 to 3 ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're really looking for here, and this is something that happens, you guys, in two-part quant questions a lot. They don't give you enough information right up there to get to a definitive answer. You will often get a kind of ratio between things and whatnot. And all you have to do is figure out which two answers, which pair of answers fits that ratio. Um, such that like one is 3 to the other's 1, right? And it turns out the only pair of numbers that has that going on is 36 and 12.
Okay.
Another way to get there is like if you get these numbers, it's basically double of everything there, right? Not 6, 12, and 18, but 12, 24, 36 would be the kind of
So
like
would you
extreme.
say, okay, would you say plugging in numbers is a good approach? Because I always feel hesitant to do that, I think, for some reason. Because I feel like um I don't know, if you're making up numbers, you might not actually get the right. But I find it's like the easiest way to get to a possible
Oh,
solution.
it's totally the right approach. Look,
Okay.
I'll say this. There are several cases in which you can make up numbers to successfully solve a problem, right? But if I'm being honest, the times I use it the most are times like these fractions, like problems with
Right.
only fractions, only percents, only ratios. That's when I'm most likely to make up numbers to solve a problem because here, not only does it like work reliably, it works better usually. It works better
Yeah.
than trying to do it with like variables and things like that. That said, using ratios here, like the difference between using ratios and using numbers is honestly only about framing. Like essentially you were using numbers to get through this problem. You certainly weren't like making up variables and stuff like that from the sounds of it, right?
No, I wasn't because I was like, I don't know how to do that with ratios, how to make up numbers. How to, yeah.
You're right not to though. It'd be silly to.
Yeah.
Ratios are really good. And like look, even though I framed it as like making up numbers, I'm still using it as a ratio in the end, right? You have to. That's the only
Yeah.
real way to understand this problem. And so I think that like your understanding of like the fact that you can and should use ratios here is fine. And whether you call it numbers or not is maybe a little bit besides the point. However, I do like I try to explicitly use numbers in these problems, not only
Mhm.
because it makes the math nice and fairly easy, but because, and this ends up being more important, it makes the problems easier to understand. If I read that second sentence as each shift worker makes 4 light bulbs, now I can picture it. Now I got like,
Yeah.
okay, for this one, that one's making 4, and then this one's making 4, and okay, so it's a multiplying thing. And it's in the word each. But when we're reading it as like pure math or as abstract ratio-y stuff, it can be easy to lose sight of that word each and what it actually means in this situation. Whereas if I'm reading a number into that part of the sentence, the each gets to kind of breathe a little bit on its own and it calls more attention to itself. And that's how I see it. So like to me, the most compelling reason to use numbers is it makes the problems less abstract, more concrete, easier to like to actually just figure out the story and figure out what you need to do with all this stuff.
Hmm.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right. Trying to like format this new problem that we're gonna do, and it's gonna be awesome properly, but such poor luck. All right, hold on a second. All right, you know what? We're just gonna format it improperly instead. It's gonna be so great, and who cares? So we're gonna do this is by popular demand, by the way, you guys. We're gonna do a data sufficiency sequences problem right now. Still gonna come back and do a two-part question on logic in a little bit, but in the meantime,
When you say, okay, for two-part problems, that
Mhm.
also includes those problems where you have a drop-down menu and you select,
Oh, those
right?
ones. So those the test calls graphics interpretation questions,
Graphic interpret.
but they
Okay.
do have two parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do have some of those lined up too, actually. So those are the ones. Are those also ones then that you're struggling with a bit?
No, not
Oh,
right
okay.
now. Those ones are okay for me.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, those ones are all right. Yeah.
No, if you do find that you want to practice those, yeah, the test calls those graphs and groups them with tables. Funny enough,
Okay.
even though, as you yourself say, like they very much have two parts.
Yeah.
It's just the truth of it.
Graphic interpretation. Okay.
Yep. All right, data sufficiency here. Again, I'll give you guys a minute to try to work it out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure where to go with this one.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
Let us discuss. Okay, so this one follows the kind of classic sequence thing in which they'll start usually by just defining how the sequence works, how it generates terms, right?
Hmm.
Um, and they always do it in this kind of annoying format because, GMAT, I guess, where they use subscripts to denote like position in the sequence and stuff like that. So here, for instance, T sub n. T sub n just means any term in the sequence. Sequence. Though they will usually tell you that n has to be above a certain thing. So this one says for n is greater than 0, meaning from t sub 1 to t sub 2 to t sub 3 and blah, blah, blah. This is the rule for all of them, for how you get the value of all of them. If t sub n is any term in the sequence, t sub n minus 1 is the term before it, right? So the term that is before t sub n should probably be specific. All right, so if we like look at a sequence as just a series of numbers and we call this t sub n, then the thing that comes right before it in the sequence will be t sub n minus 1. The thing that comes right after it in the sequence will be, t sub n plus 1. And you can kind of radiate outwards from there. That's t sub n minus 2. So all these little things mean are position in the sequence. All right, so they give you this very, very abstract general form of the sequence in which they say you can you can get the number for any term in this sequence by taking the term that came right before it, t sub n minus 1, and adding whatever number of position you're at. And that makes very little sense, even when you say it that way. And so the best thing to do is just try a number for n to kind of model it out. So, in fact, you've been given t sub 0. So try if n equals 1. If n equals 1, we're looking at, okay, that means t sub 1 equals t sub 1 minus 1, that is t sub 0, plus just 1 itself, because n equals 1 in that case, right? And so that'll be t sub 0 plus 1. T sub 0 is 3. And so it'd be 3 plus 1, or 4, that you'd get out of that. And that's how sequence problems tend to go. Just a bunch of plugging stuff in, a bunch of like substituting. And in a case like this, maybe a bit of pattern recognition, like patterns emerge the higher you go in the thing. Because the question ultimately asks, is T sub n even? And they haven't told us what T sub n right now is, right? They don't know, like, what is n? It'll depend. So, where do we go from there? We got to look at what the statements give us. If n plus 1 is divisible by 3, you can get like a couple of numbers for n out of that, right? What could n be? N plus 1 is divisible by 3. So n could be something like 2, right? 2 plus 1 is divisible
Hmm.
by 3. 5 plus 1 is divisible by 3. 8 plus 1 is divisible by 3, etc. You'll only really need to try 2 of them here, an odd one and an even one, because this is pretty much an odds and evens question. And so you're usually going to be pretty safe as long as you try those 2. And that means what we want to know here is T sub n even, right? So if n is 2, for instance, T sub 2 would be, according to this formula here, T sub 2 is equal to T sub 1 plus 2, right? Luckily, we've already calculated T sub 1 as just kind of a sample thing. So we're looking at T sub 2 being 6. T sub 1's
Mhm.
value 4 plus n itself, too, in this case. That's cool. So the answer to this question, or the question in this case, would be yes, right? In that case, T sub n is even. T sub 5, though, oh man, that's going to be whatever T sub 4 is plus 5. But we don't know what T sub 4 is. The most recent thing we have is T sub 2. And so we might have to just kind of calculate up to T sub 5, right? T sub 3 would be T sub 2 plus 3. That's 9. T sub 4 would be T sub 3. That's 9. Plus 4. 13. And then T sub 5 would be that number, 13. Plus 5, which makes us 18 again. And still even in that case. And at that point, you probably say, you know what, though, enough's enough. Enough is very much enough. Now, if you start seeing a pattern for evens and odds and how they're going to work, you're probably okay. It's like T sub 6 is going to be 18 plus an even number, so it'll be even. T sub 7 will be that even number plus an odd number, so it'll be odd. T sub 8 will be that odd number plus an even number. And so it'll actually end up being odd again. And that's what also can make a hard problem different from an easier problem. The need to go just a little bit farther or to like see a pattern a little bit more clearly. The terms in this sequence, as far as even versus odd is concerned, seem to have this like weird alternating pattern. T0 was odd, T1 was even, T2 was even, but T3 was odd, T4 was odd, T5 was even, T6 is even, T7 is odd, T8 is odd, T9 is even, T10 is even. And so it kind of seems to go that way. Odd, then even, even, odd, odd, even, even. So, and so it's got kind of a 4-digit pattern. Essentially, every like 4 digits, it's gone through a whole cycle: 2 evens, 2 odds, 2 evens, 2 odds, and so on. And that is why statement 2 is going to be a winner. If n minus 1 is divisible by 4,
Mhm.
n could theoretically be 1. It could be 5. It could be 9. It could be 13. But notice they're all 4 apart. And because this pattern goes every like 4 things, it's going to be okay. We already know if n is 1, t sub n is 4 from what we did up top. We already know if n is 5, t sub n is whatever we came up with, 18. There it is. We already know that t sub 8 is going to be odd, which means that t sub 9, which is when you take that odd number for t sub 8 and add another odd number 9 to it, is going to be even. And so the pattern continues. In general, on data sufficiency, this is a pretty hard problem. Again, I like look, I didn't want to give you this problem as like a problem you should be able to do well now. I chose this problem more as an opportunity to talk about a lot of the features of both data sufficiency and sequence problems, if that makes sense. Sorry, by the way, so sorry, but it'd be good to like throw the whole kitchen sink in there because then we get to have like a whole sequences lesson on it. So data sufficiency purposes, one of the things that holds true is when a statement is sufficient, there's usually going to be some sort of logical reason why, pattern-based reason why, or algebraic reason why. Like you'll usually be able to prove that it's sufficient, without having to like choose a zillion cases or something like that. Notice how I had to kind of like pivot to that for these later ones because a certain point it becomes less practical to be adding up these numbers, right? For insufficient statements, though, that's not usually the case. For insufficient statements, you do generally have to test cases to see that they're insufficient. I mean, some of them will be slam dunks, like obviously insufficient. They're asking about x, and this statement's talking about p. It's not going to get it done, right? Um, but for a lot of insufficient statements, especially in yes/no questions like this, is T sub n even, right? Did Marisol go to the luncheon? Things like that. You will often have to test cases. to prove insufficiency. So be firing on all cylinders. And that's another thing I want to say about just your studying in general on quant, like, or quant related stuff. Be able to use multiple kinds of approaches on problems. We already saw this a little bit in the light bulbs problem, right? We talked about like ratios versus numbers versus algebra and stuff like that. Honestly, you want to be comfortable with a little bit of everything, because the whole thing with the test is they want to knock you off your balance a little bit. They want to test your ability to approach things in a variety of ways. Like they're going to give you a ton of different like looks to do that.
So, okay, regarding the wording of
Yeah,
this question, so
yeah,
is T at N even? So to prove that, so we're saying two by itself is sufficient.
yeah.
Right? Um, I guess like sometimes the wording is kind of confusing to me because it's like, are you saying so if it doesn't show it in case like in case one that didn't demonstrate that, does that just mean it's not true, or are you trying to find the answer that makes it true? Is that the
So
idea? Or and if none of them show it, that means neither of them are
this
sufficient?
is a really, really good question. Great question. Okay. So let's take it back a step. This is, like I said, this is a yes no question, right? It's asking, is T sub n
Okay.
even? You'd answer that with a yes, it is, or a no, it's not, right? As opposed to a lot of data sufficiency questions that ask for, like, what's the value of T sub n or something like that, value oriented question, right? So this is, yeah, this is a yes no question. It is indeed. B, statement two
Okay.
alone is sufficient. This is a yes no
Yeah.
question. And so it gets really, really confusing on yes no questions trying to separate true and false from yes and no. But it's a really, really
Okay.
important distinction, right? So what's true is these things. These are the truth. All right. N plus one is divisible by three. Whatever number they have in mind for n plus one is divisible by three. No doubt about it, right? Whatever number they have in mind for n minus one is divisible by four. So like five, for instance, is a number that fits both of those categories, right? And could properly be five. That's the truth about n. And no matter what, you're only picking things for n that satisfy that truth, right? So like you wouldn't want to in statement one say, yeah, but n could be four, because four plus one's not divisible by three, right? And you have to like live within
Mhm.
that limitation. So that's the true part. Then there's the yes or no part. The yes or no part has to do with the question up here. Is T sub n even, right? Like I said, yes, no question, obviously, yes, no question. What we're really looking for in the statements is this. If we hold to what the statements say, if we like live by the truth of whatever statement we're on, do we get a fixed answer to this question? Like, yes, every case, no, every case would also be sufficient?
Mhm.
Or do we get a changing answer to that question, a shifting answer, right? The reason that statement one was insufficient is if n equals eight, or yeah, if n equals eight, the answer to the question is no at that point. T sub n, T sub 8 is not even. It comes out to an odd, right? And so if this is all we know about n, that n plus 1 is a number that's divisible by 3, that n is 1 less than a multiple of 3, is that enough to give us a definitive answer to that question up there? No, it's not enough, because it goes both ways. It's kind of a maybe. It leaves us with a might be yes, might be no. It depends which n plus one we're talking about, right? If we're talking about
Yeah.
2 or 5, then yeah, sure, T sub n is even. But if we're talking about 8 or 11, not so much. Statement two, though, for every n that fits this rule, right? For every n that keeps statement two true, the answer to that question up there is yes, 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 yes. And so we don't come away from statement two knowing what n is, but as long as n follows this rule, it's gonna be the case that T sub n is even. So we can still get a definitive answer to that question up there. So it's not so much like it's sufficient if that thing's true. It's sufficient if you get a consistent, usually yes, answer to that question. And that,
Right.
yeah, that's that's the thing. And I know you look at this one and it's like, yeah, but why would I argue with the statements? But just trust me, it starts to get in your head a little bit that you want to get like a yes and a no, but not to the statements. The statements are always just the truth. yes and a no up to that question there.
So it's kind of like if the statement leaves doubt or something, or that
That's
like
exactly
then
right.
right, okay.
That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
like in a very specific way on a yes no question, that doubt's going to show up by having one case that answers it yes and one case that answers it no. If you're going to all the trouble of testing cases, right? But sometimes you can just look at a statement and say, no, that's going to leave plenty of doubt and I don't need to
Yeah, yeah.
bother. I don't think it's so easy in this one, obviously, because
Yeah.
this is a tough question. Um,
Yeah,
all right.
this is a hard one because you can't just look at one of like one or two and be like, oh, it's definitely not that, which is
Yep.
how I've been doing data sufficiency questions because sometimes it's just like obvious. You can cross it off.
It is
But
very true.
yeah,
Yeah, not this one so much.
yeah,
And part of it is because so there are like obviously this one had sequence notation and started that whole way where they define the sequence, and it does something that not a lot of them do, where it defines the term in the sequence both by n itself and by the terms around it. Usually they just choose one or the other, so it's a good sequence problem in that way. But it also does one of the most annoying things that sequence problems sometimes do, and this tends to be in the upper levels of difficulty. And that is it's got a pattern that emerges, but that only emerges if you do like the first few rounds of the sequence and say, oh, okay, it's going, even, even, odd, odd, even, even, odd, odd. I see it now. And that's always, I think, kind of the worst when you have to see something like that because nothing tells you there, hey, just look for the pattern. You almost have to just decide there's gonna be a pattern and then go after it. And that, requires you to have seen quite a few sequence problems before. So I want to say it explicitly here about this one, just so you know to be a little bit on the lookout for that in other sequence problems, especially on data sufficiency. You have silly, silly patterns. Oh, let me see. Not that one. Oh yeah, I have a logic question. Anything else on this one though?
could this problem work by because it's like a way to work like find a solution would be okay. So if you're trying to find n like all the values that n could be where it's divisible by four, and then you plug it in and then you try to get actual like values. I guess you can't because then you're not gonna know what t at I don't know five like you don't know what t at five is. So is that just like
Yeah, and then
this
you
is
have to
just a
end up
one way
calculating it all the way there anyway. Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the way this one turns out. And so given that you end up having to do that work to get to like T sub 5 anyway, and maybe even to like T sub 8 or T sub 9,
Yeah.
you probably at that point, if you're looking for it, you'll start to notice that pattern
Okay.
emerge too, right? And that would be the thing. Like again, basically it's just have in mind that there may well be a pattern going on because sequence problems, such sequence problems. All right. Yes. I was gonna do another two-part one, but I figured that one was so fun that we might just do another sequence problem instead. Hooray. Um, and this one I've actually like chosen because this feels very true to the test that I got when I took the actual GMAT focus. I got a lot of data sufficiency questions that looked like this that were about like sets and their medians or their averages or things like that. And sometimes those sets were defined by sequence. And so
Hmm.
here we are. My misery becomes your misery. Um, I'll give you a minute. Let me know when you're ready.
I think I have an answer.
There we go. You sound confident this time. I'm liking this.
Well, I think each one is sufficient on its own.
I like the sound of that because it's
But
true.
okay, and I can tell you
Yeah,
why.
please go on.
Okay. Well, you can find this, okay, because you have x, yeah, so you have n is an integer equal or greater to 1. You have
Hmm.
x number of like values, right? Because it's the
Hmm.
first x terms. So if you
Yeah.
know the sum is 200, you can just rewrite that equation
Yeah.
and solve for x. So then you know how many, like I didn't actually work it out, but then you
Oh,
know
good,
how,
good.
yeah,
Smart.
but then you know how many values there are, and then you can calculate what the median is. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're saying, if you just wanted to sit there long enough and get all the values for a sub n until they eventually added
Yeah.
up to 220. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Nice.
for two, that was the one I knew right away was sufficient, just because it gives you how many, the range of terms is 30. So you know it would start at 1. So then it would go up to 30. So you know A will equal, I guess, uh 31. But um
Yeah.
yeah, then you just can solve for the yeah, then you can solve for the median. Yeah.
Yeah. Median will be the
Yeah.
16th term.
Yeah.
Oh, range of the term. Sorry.
The
It's,
range of the term, yeah.
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 No,
I
I'm
didn't
getting
actually work
silly.
out what the median is. I just
Hmm.
thought like, is it enough information to figure out what it is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And like you said, this one came to pretty immediately, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
second one did. The first one I had to think about.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
exactly. Statement two came to you pretty immediately.
Yeah.
Statement one took some work, and and good work it was. Like, yeah, essentially, you can get every term in the sequence you want from that rule, right? If n is one, that's five. If n is two,
Yeah.
that's eight. Or yeah, it is eight. Math, um, and so on, and it keeps going up by three there, right? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, you should be able to find it, but largely because it says the first x terms of sequence A and not just x terms of sequence A, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of wrote it out as like a n plus one, a n plus two, a n plus three, and then that will go all the way to
Mm-hmm.
a x, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mhm.
Nice. Yeah, it goes all the way from A1 to AX or like A1, A2, A3 all the way up to AX,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, exactly that. And because you can calculate them all, you can just figure out where is that range 30, stopping there, finding median, all's well.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Hey, that's ending on a high note. Well done. Um, I don't see any like major problems, at least with data sufficiency. It seems like it is coming together. Like the practice is not
It just
going amiss. Yeah.
it just takes a while. Like it just yeah, it's the timing, right? It just takes like I can sit and think about it and I'll get it, but doing it under two
I
minutes is tough.
don't have that time.
Yeah.
Um, that's so yeah, I think look, usually the thing for that is going to be doing problems in multiple ways. Like doing it in the time is about like being sharp on whatever approach you use, but also choosing the right approach, essentially, right? And for any kind of quant adjacent problem, there tends to be multiple approaches available to you.
Okay.
And the only way you're really then going to be able to like choose wisely among them and execute them well is if you've practiced them all. And the best way to do that then is to do a set of problems, do it using whatever approach comes to mind, doing it timed or whatever. But then when you go back and review it, don't go straight to the explanations even then. I know I'm really delaying the gratification on these explanations here, it occurs to me, but like
Yeah.
don't go straight to the explanations even then. See if you can do it in a second way. There are only basically three kinds of approaches to problems, right? There's algebra stuff
Okay.
with variables and equations and manipulations and all that. There's numerical stuff, like making up numbers using ratios and proportions, testing the answer choices, choosing cases like we did in the last problem and stuff like that. And then there's conceptual stuff or logical stuff, which is largely what you did here. It works really well on data sufficiency, especially again when statements are sufficient. Um, in a perfect world, you're just choosing the right one for every problem you see. Generally speaking, the conceptual or logical approach will be the fastest approach, but it can also be the most kind of like the most sloppy, the one that makes you most likely
Yeah.
to miss certain exceptions or things like that, right? Algebra and the numerical approaches are kind of your workhorses on a lot of the quant problems, including the data sufficiency problems. But be doing both of them on any given problem, or be seeing, okay, what's my like shortest path through this problem? Or if you've already done it algebraically and you're coming back to it on review, ask yourself, can I do this using numbers? Can I do this using pure logic and meaning and connections and stuff like that? Um, Pushing yourself in that way will do a couple of things for you. One, it'll make sure that you're breaking out of whatever habits you might now be in, right? Because those habits are going to be used against you. Basically, one of the other things about the harder the problems get is they're harder to set up, partly because they'll also kind of trick you into thinking you should do this thing. Like you see the most like algebraic looking problem ever, and you're going to think I should do algebra, but it turns out the fastest way is to test the answers there, or just something like that, right? Something a bit less obvious that's hidden there. And you're only going to get really good at that by like seeing the same problem in multiple ways. The more you practice the different approaches, the better vision you're going to have on, if you're at the beginning of a problem, you're saying, okay, I've got an algebra approach, I've got a numerical approach, you'll have better vision on which one's likely to work out faster for you. And that's where you ultimately want to get to. But it starts like right now by trying to do the problems you do in two different ways, trying to do each statement in a couple of different ways, things like that. Right.
Is it okay to do like, let's say I looked at this, like I could solve it, I just didn't,
Mhm.
but like, um, to look at it conceptually, and then if you're stuck, try algebra. Like, is that an okay approach, or did you just
Yeah,
jump into algebra?
yeah, no, I would start
Okay.
conceptually, just
Okay.
generally speaking, anyway. And I'll say, like, for my part, okay, I'll use algebra on data sufficiency in particular. I'll use algebra if it's a story problem, usually, because algebra really works in story problems. Like, translation really works on data sufficiency and those problems for which it's eligible. But otherwise, I'm using largely the conceptual approach first. And it's when I suspect that a statement is not sufficient that I'll often back up that conceptual approach
Right.
with
Okay.
like testing some cases to make sure, or even if I think a statement is sufficient, but I feel like I've gone a bit too fast or I'm doing it too high level, too conceptual, I'll like back it up maybe by testing a couple of cases in my head and I'll be out of there. And so in truth, I end up doing I end up doing two things often on data sufficiency, any given data sufficiency problems, because I'll have like one main approach, usually conceptual, and then something to back it up with a little bit just to make sure I've like dotted my I's and crossed my T's, as it were. And the only way you can do that fast enough, and I'm not going to say I'm a speed demon on data sufficiency or anything, but the only way you could even possibly do that fast enough is if you've had like so much practice with testing cases that you can just offload it to your head and still do it accurately, right? And that you do know which cases to go for to really get at the heart of the matter and stuff like that, right? But you can also only do that if you've had a lot of practice doing those problems conceptually and stuff. And so right now, especially since you're, still toward the beginning of your studying, you have an opportunity to like hit it right from the start, and try to do problems multiple ways. You will get better
Okay.
faster at quant, because it's not going to be the technical stuff, I don't think, that's getting you down on this so much. It's going to be coming up with a plan, making sure it's the right plan,
Yeah.
getting through that
Yeah.
plan in time and stuff like that. And it starts from the very beginning, from like deciding which way you're going to do it more than anything. So definitely focus on that. And the way there is overdo it on problems for a while, do them multiple
Okay.
ways, reflect on why was this way better here, why was that way better there, and you'll start to make these decisions hopefully more and more seamlessly. Um, And yeah, and that's it. That's it. That's our free prep hour for today, I guess. But my email address is now in the chat window. If you have other questions, if you need any help or whatever, just send me an
Are you okay? So I haven't enrolled in like the
email. Yeah,
classes yet.
that's all right.
I was kind of trying to see how far I could get on my own.
As you should.
Um,
I think that's smart
okay.
because like
That's smart. Okay.
even if you do end up enrolling in a class, like one, you have tons of time if you need it. I know you don't want it to go on forever, like you were saying, end of summer, but
Yeah.
like but you do have more time if you need it. And if you do, what I've seen is this: if people come to classes not having studied much at all they really get out of the classes is the technical stuff, but they don't get a lot of the like the harder problem solving, puzzle solving brain teaser stuff that they need.
Right.
people who come to the classes having already studied on their own and haven't gotten all the technical stuff are basically a lot more inclined to absorb the more problem solving and how do I just get through problem stuff. Like if you do end up taking a course with anyone, honestly, after you've studied on your own, you're going to have a much clearer idea of exactly what you need from that course, what the like benefits are of things that whatever instructor or video or whatever it may be is telling you, because you've had the struggles before, right? You can connect to stuff that you've seen as opposed to just having to like take it on faith or thinking about it in the
Okay.
abstract or something like that. So yeah, I'm hugely in favor of doing some self-study before you take any
Okay.
sort of course at all.
Okay. Yeah, that's encouraging then. Because I was like, is there value in doing it if I've tried to study on my own? Like, I guess like how much further could the class? Like, I know there's like Kaplan has the I forgot what it's called. It's like the one to take you over the edge, I guess, if you're hitting a plateau or something. But I was thinking I would just enroll in like the regular one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think that's probably pretty smart, depending on where your score is. So let's put it this way: if you get your practice test scores through studying on your own up to like mid 600s, then you're probably not taking a course because the course will be like
Okay.
not as helpful to you. Or you take like an advanced course, or maybe Kaplan's over the edge course or something like
The
that.
over
I
the edge
actually,
course. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, something like something more specialized. If you've studied for a while and you end up in like mid to high 500s, which is totally like a thing that happens sometimes, then of course I think is still beneficial for sure. But
Okay.
like that would be really the deciding thing. And I think even if you do get to like high 600s, there are definitely like, the over the edge and certain on demand courses that are still like really helpful to you there. It's just you wouldn't want to take just a general course at that point,
Okay. Because
because it
I'm
would
trying
be
to get
redundant.
to like 650. Like that's what I don't know. That's not super ambitious, but I'm not applying to a super competitive school, but I'm aiming for like yeah.
It's
Like
very doable. Like it's doable
okay.
from a starting point of 500 for sure. It's not,
Okay.
look, it's not like an easy score at all to get. It's not what
Yeah.
650 used to be on the GMAT. It's more like a 655 now is around what like a 710 used to be on the GMAT. So it's
Okay.
still definitely a good score, but like incredibly reachable from 500. So
Okay.
not to worry at all. Like it is doable. I'd say like if by test four you don't see yourself at least toward like the end of the 500s,
Okay.
that might be time to start thinking about taking a course.
Classes. Okay. Because
Yeah,
I know I do learn better through live instruction. Like
yeah,
I have to
I
attend
do
like
too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is like
Okay.
really hard to study for something at all on your own, but especially
Yeah.
something like the GMAT. And luckily there are a lot of resources out there, good resources, free resources. But yeah, like
So you're saying I should try if I can't crack that six, I should probably just try to do the class. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
or if you start to find yourself just losing steam and motivation and all
Yeah.
the things that an in-person class or a live class of some kind can help you with, then yeah, that could be a time to pivot away from it too. But yeah, but for now, I'd say plug on. You're gonna be making progress, I think, for a while. You still got the medium questions to get to and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good guideline. Yeah, I was just like, I wasn't as sure at what point should I just do the class, but I think that's a good goal. Like, yeah, if I can't get crack 600, I'll
Yeah,
enroll. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. But yeah, like I said, email me and let me know what, like if you have questions like that going forward, if you've taken a few practice tests and you're like, Ryan, here's where I'm at now. What do you think?
Yeah.
Just yeah, feel free.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. This was great. Very helpful.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
came. Priyanka, I'm sorry I couldn't give you mic access. It said you were on an older version of Zoom and I was going to have to make you a panelist. And I thought, but what if she blows up the whole Zoom room, which is now that I think about it, silly. But either way, I hope you got something out of it too. And I'm so sorry. I definitely would have given you mic if it would let me.
Oh, she asked a question. Is this an official guide? Like in
Oh,
the,
no, this
are
one
you,
isn't. This one isn't
so,
an official
okay.
guide question. This was one of our questions, I think. Yeah, it is one of our
Will
questions.
you always use, well, the instructors in Kaplan, they always use like like your own question.
No, they'll tend to. So Manhattan Prep instructors, we tend to use official guide questions.
Oh,
Kaplan
okay.
uses like a bit of a mix, but more official guide questions than not. Kaplan uses, I think, official guide questions. So it's been a while since I taught for Kaplan proper. Um, the reason we don't use them in free prep hours, but do use them in our courses, is we give official guides to our students in our courses. And so GMAT's
Right.
like, okay, cool, then you can use our problems in your courses too. But since this is like a free to all prep hour, GMAT doesn't like it so much if we use their questions in these.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's the only reason I
That makes
avoided
sense.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I made sure to choose ones that were like I know the official sort of questions these ones are modeled on. So like these are not like way out of left field or anything like that, but no, these are our questions. Thanks for pointing to that, by the way. I
Yeah.
totally missed that. All right, you guys.
Okay.
Go have a good night.
Thanks.
Do
Have a
either
good
of you
evening.
feel free to email me, and it was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Yeah.